Juana was sitting in the personnel department of the Papyrus Plus private clinic, and with undisguised pleading she looked at the dapper blonde woman, the personnel manager. She, with a kind of frankly predatory gleam in her eye, was carefully studying Juana's educational documents and data about her practice in a public clinic. The red lips of the personnel officer formed a sneer, and the pink nail of her index finger tapped impatiently on the surface of her desk. Finally, she broke away from the papers and looked back at the girl sitting across from her, with a frankly appreciative look. At that moment, Joan realized that another setback awaited her. "I am not willing to offer you the position of nurse in our clinic," said the employee in a tone of false courtesy. "You know, you are not yet competent enough to work in such a high-level institution as ours. Try to get a job in your local hospital, for example. You will gain experience and, at the same time, you will understand that the nursing position is not as easy as it may seem at first sight." "But it's all written down," Juana protested with a trembling voice. "Look, there is also a certificate of excellent academic performance and a recommendation from the internship site. Mrs. Francisca, I know you still have that vacancy. I saw it myself on the clinic's website. They have been looking for a suitable candidate for a month now. Why am I not the one?" Francisca's secretary, a frail gray mouse with glasses, looked sympathetically at the overweight girl sitting in front of her boss. In the face of the unfortunate woman she could clearly see the real reason for the refusal. "I know you think that if I'm overweight, I won't look as bright as the rest of the clinic. But I will do a good job, I promise. You have no idea how hard I am willing to work in this position to justify your trust." Hearing how openly Juana talked about her appearance, Francisca lowered her gaze and pursed her lips. She really couldn't imagine how an employee of such voluminous dimensions could serve the demanding patients of the clinic, accustomed to seeing only beauty in everything around them. Above all, for her own money. "Juana, I am glad that you are objective in your assessment of your own figure, but it is something else entirely. Many of the patients who come to us are characterized by, let's say, demanding more and more from the staff and, above all, from everything that concerns the service. As a nurse you would find it very difficult to keep up with their, how shall I put it, domestic rhythm or something like that? We often bring in businessmen or people from a very high social class, and they are known to be always and everywhere thinking about work, even in a hospital bed, for God's sake. You have to be quick, you have to roll with the punches, you know? I'll be honest, I'm not sure you can do it." The woman put Juana's documents back in a folder and handed them to the girl. She hoped she had behaved as correctly as possible. "Thank you for your time. I have understood everything." Joan, barely able to hold back tears of resentment and frustration, got up from the table. "You'll make it, don't despair," said Francisca. "It will just be a different place, more suitable for you." Juana did not answer, but nodded. The girl headed for the exit, intending to leave the clinic, when suddenly a tall young man dressed in a snow-white robe literally rushed at her. They almost collided at the door, and instinctively the man put his arm around Juana's shoulders to keep her from falling. That brief instant was enough for the young Papyrus Plus chief physician to notice the girl's tear-reddened eyes. "What is going on here?" he asked with an irritated frown, looking at the head of the personnel department. "Why are there people crying in your office all the time, Francisca? Can you explain it to me?" The blonde with bright pink nails instantly blushed like a cancer, thrown into the bubbling boiling water. The new head doctor at the clinic, though relatively young, had already managed to grow rumors of her harsh temper. She couldn't be angry with him, so she merely stretched her full red lips into a pleasant smile. "It's all right, Mr. Modesto," she said in a pale voice. "Here we have finished another interview for the nurse's position. Why? What happened? Rejected again?" The man, with sympathy and understanding, looked at Juana, frozen in front of him. "Let me see your documents." She extended her hand toward the folder that Juana had clutched in her armpit. The girl was very surprised by this frankness, but handed him the papers. Modesto first smiled in satisfaction, then looked at Francisca with a furtive air. "Francisca, what's wrong? Why did you reject such a valuable specialist? It's been a month. We can't find anyone to fill the position, either the age of the candidates doesn't suit you, or some other invented criteria? We need professionalism and ability to react quickly in difficult situations, not a pretty face and long legs. I heard that girl begging you to hire her, so give her a chance to prove herself, after all. Don't rush to get rid of such a successful staff, Francisca. Moreover, her documents are in order, she has a diploma with honors. I understand, Mr. Modesto. Forgive me, I just thought it might be difficult for Juana in our work schedule. Let her decide for herself. The chief physician interrupted his subordinate. We urgently need a nurse in the operating room, we are understaffed. I am sure that this girl will be able to cope with the responsibilities entrusted to her. Juana did not expect such nice words in his speech. A sweet and childishly innocent smile played on her lips, and in her heart, for the first time in a long time, awoke hope for the best. After the head doctor left, Francisca quietly took the young woman's papers and told her to come back on Monday, then everything would be ready. Come to work at 8:30 in the morning, don't be late under any circumstances, discipline is strict here, he warned the girl. You are on probation for 3 months. If during that time there are no complaints about you and you do your work well, we will put you on the payroll. Incredulous at her happiness, Juana promised that, if necessary, she would be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. Thanking the woman, Juana ran out of the clinic and, rejoicing in her good fortune, headed home at a brisk pace. On the way she went to a bakery and bought 3 cabbage pasties and a puff pastry with buttercream. She would finally have her first job. It was something to celebrate. Juana was walking, and along the way she was remembering her past. He grew up in a very ordinary family. His father, Eduardo, worked as a forklift driver, and his mother, Marta, was an accountant in a small company repairing and selling prefabricated windows. The Lindas, that was Juana's family name, always lived within their means, modestly. They were not poor, but neither were they starry-eyed. Both spouses were happy with their jobs, so they had been working at their jobs for many years. At first, when Juana was very small, she did not stand out among her classmates, a normal, healthy child with beautiful dark brown hair, laughing blue eyes and a kind smile, always slightly embarrassed. Her parents loved their daughter very much, so they tried to give her everything she needed to feel comfortable in the difficult environment of her classmates. She always got straight A's in school, and even received several letters of recommendation for her achievements. The girl was always kind and had a big pure heart, so she had no shortage of friends. And to many of her classmates she often helped them write homework assignments and solve equations for them on difficult exams. Juana was glad to be able to help her friends, and they, of course, could not but be glad to have such a wonderful, kind and intelligent friend. The first warning signs about the girl's health sounded when she was 12 years old. Due to the hormonal restructuring of the organism, Juana gained a few extra kilos for the first time in a very short time. In one summer, from being a girl of average build, Juana quickly became a pretty girl, but a bit chubby. Father and mother, seeing how their daughter had changed since she returned from her grandmother's house, were surprised at first. They could not understand how, after spending 3 months in the country, outdoors and eating mostly vegetables and berries, Juana had managed to put on so much weight so quickly. At first she felt very little change in her body. The doctor who examined her immediately after her return to her parents' home found nothing unnatural in the process. This sometimes happens in the early stages of puberty, he said. Try not to focus your daughter's attention on the change in her body, all her vital parameters are within normal limits. She will grow back in a couple of months and become a slender beauty, the doctor reassured Juana's parents. So, for the first time, Juana had to go to school with clothes a size and a half bigger than she usually wore. The boys in the class, of course, noticed her fatness, but they didn't dare say anything out loud to her. After all, she had helped them so many times in difficult situations during tests and quizzes, that they didn't feel comfortable teasing Juana. Especially since her weight was still not much. But the months passed one after another, and the condition of the teenager became more and more difficult. It seemed that every day Jean grew bigger just by breathing. Very soon, the girl had to change her whole wardrobe again, for her weight, at 163 centimeters tall, was already approaching 70 constant kilos. Juana began to worry seriously. With every kilo she gained, another friend would turn away from her, arguing that they were embarrassed to go out and be friends with such a cow. In addition, the boys were coming up with more and more hurtful nicknames for their classmate, the kindest of which was Juana the elephant. At night, the unhappy girl sobbed more and more, curled up on a soft pillow, and during the day she tried, in secret from her father and mother, to avoid eating. Eventually, Juana practically stopped eating, drinking only water and a little sugar-free herbal tea. Martha, realizing the disturbing signs in her daughter's behavior, tried to talk to her seriously. "Juana, my daughter, why don't you eat anything? I've tried so hard, cooking your favorite chops for you and your father." "I'm full, mother," the daughter replied stubbornly. "I've eaten well at school, so I don't want to." Her mother put her hand on her daughter's back. "Honey, if something worries you, you always know that you can tell me everything quietly. Whoever you are, but I will always understand you, you are my own dear daughter." Juana sobbed, tears of resentment shone in her eyes. "Mom, how am I going to live now? I'm so fat. Nobody wants to be friends with me in class anymore. All they do is insult me. They are ashamed to sit with me at the same desk, can you imagine?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. Marta hugged her daughter warmly and held her close. "Jesus, daughter, that's ridiculous. You're not fat. Yes, you've put on a little weight, but the doctor told me it's normal, it happens to a lot of people your age." No, Mom, that's the thing. It's not a lot of people. Look at me, I'm the only one in my class who looks like I weigh like a tractor." Juana turned away from her mother, wiping the treacherous wetness from her face. "There, Daniela, Sophia, they are like goddesses, slim, slender, they can afford any clothes." "So what?" Her mother showed her hands. "But you, Juana, are the smartest girl in the class, if not in the whole school. That's much more valuable, believe me." "There's nothing of value here." His daughter shook her head. "They're just using me, that's all they need me for." "Then you mustn't allow it, show some pride after all." Marta shook her head stubbornly. "It's all right for them to be kind when they need something from you, but what if you deprive them of it? Then things will only get worse," said Juana. "I don't know what to do, Mom. Deep down I know I'm doing wrong, but what if food makes me like this? What if I never lose weight again?" The mother affectionately stroked her daughter's hand. "Juana, don't listen to anyone, you are beautiful as you are. And it will pass, it has to pass. You have to think about finishing school, about where you're going to go next, about your future, do you understand? If you start refusing to eat regularly now, you will surely ruin your health, and then no one will be able to guarantee that you will change, neither me nor your doctor. Is thinness worth a happy future? No need for me to answer that question, you have to decide for yourself." Juana thought for a moment. Of course, her mother's words made sense, but Martha herself had never been overweight, nor had her husband. Juana's parents had always been people, though not perfect, but within the normal human constitution, and they certainly had not expected their daughter to encounter such problems. Juana understood that they wished her well, but she was still concerned about her appearance. Although she had agreed to eat that night so as not to offend her mother, the feelings of anxiety and guilt over what she had eaten were still there, and she was well aware that she would still have to live with that condition for many years to come. Juana Linda finished school with a medal, a certificate for her excellent academic performance, and her own weight of 90 kilos. No matter how hard she tried to gain the respect and friendship of her classmates, she was still a black sheep to them, a smart but very fat girl from the third desk. After graduating from high school, Juana was forced to move from her small hometown to the regional metropolis. There, the girl first encountered real bullying from her peers and, as a result, her long-awaited training in her favorite profession, Juana wanted to become a nurse, turned into a real nightmare for her. She was placed in the local dormitory along with other students from other cities, but the reception there was not at all warm. The roommates refused to communicate with the poor girl, ignoring all her attempts to be kind. Every evening, when Juana came back from studying, the door of her dormitory had a horrible insulting inscription: "Fat, get thin, here lives a mammoth, dull. Go back to your basura pole." That sort of thing. The neighbors, of course, were not happy about these shenanigans, but they blamed Juana for everything. The unfortunate woman, instead of preparing for the next day, was forced to erase the disgusting insults from her door late into the night, only to have it all happen again the next night. The situation was not good during the day either, when Juana had to spend all her time with her group. Her classmates behaved as if they had never seen an obese person in their lives. They jumped in front of her like a gorilla, hooting and hissing behind her back. Every morning a new inscription appeared on the blackboard of the classroom where they had their first class, describing in the most sophisticated way Juana's great weight. Thus, the girls' classmates competed with each other in ingenuity. The one who came up with the most interesting nickname for Juana this week won and got a case of beer for one. The most memorable was the nickname Godzilla, with which they teased the girl for 15 days. At one point, Juana wanted to drop everything and leave without looking back. She could not even confess to her mother the endless harassment, she was too ashamed. However, Juana remembered her mother's words that if you really want something, you have to move towards it, regardless of all the difficulties and obstacles, only then will you get what you want. Her studies were going well, and for that reason alone she tolerated everything that happened to her. Sometimes, however, she could not stand it. She hid in the farthest women's bathroom of the institute, where she could cry without fear of being attacked by her dormitory mates. Compared to all these attacks, her life at school could even be considered peaceful. Of course, Juana was aware that her appearance was disproportionately far from the modern canons of beauty, but still, the girl hoped that at least at school she could find loyal and good friends. She dreamed that there she would meet people who, because of their mental and emotional maturity, would not mind her physical fulfillment. Unfortunately, the miracle did not happen, so it was incredibly hard for Juana, who was still a kind and compassionate person at heart, to endure all this every day. When she became overweight, bitterness, tears and disappointment became the only constant companions in her life. Thus, at the age of 20-something, Juana found herself an unwitting outcast among the fierce students, tormented by her own imperfection and her lack of prospects for fulfillment in a world where good looks and slender legs were valued more highly than the brightest mind and an excellent education. With a shudder, Juana thought that this was only the beginning of her future problems. The greatest difficulties began when Juana graduated in medicine. In her graduating class, she was one of the top 2 graduates. She had planned to start her career as a nurse in a private clinic. However, her job search soon turned into a real obstacle course for Juana. She thought that with such professional qualifications she would be welcome in any clinic, even the most prestigious ones. In reality, however, it was far from that simple. The whole time Juana was interning she thought that the adult world would be much kinder, or at least calmer, for someone with her disability than in school and high school. There must have been people in authority who understood how important it was for a nurse to be professional and caring, at least that was her reasoning. However, at the first clinic she went to for an interview, she noticed one strange thing. She had never met a woman over 40, or at least 35, among the staff of the medical institution. The second thing was, of course, much worse for her. There was not a single girl in the institution who even remotely resembled her. All the female employees who walked around Juana looked like models and, for the most part, seemed to have gone first thing in the morning to a beauty salon, where they had perfect makeup and hairstyles applied to their faces and hair. Juana immediately felt uncomfortable. Would she face the same wall of incomprehension that had haunted her all these years? Why does this always happen to me? She couldn't stop thinking as she left the stage of her first interview. That day they promised her that they would call her back as soon as they had checked all the data they needed for her personnel file. But neither after a few days nor after 2 weeks did they call her back. Then she realized that she would have to face something like this more than once when she was looking for a job. Unfortunately, that was the case. No matter where she tried to get a job after that, Juana was just rejected everywhere. Every time she went to the modern, spacious offices of various commercial clinics, Juana saw the same thing. The backbone of the management staff were mostly middle-aged men and upwards, but the nurses and specialists of all kinds were always very slim and attractive young women. In the competition against them, Juana, of course, didn't stand a chance, just because her weight exceeded the generally accepted standards of beauty, or at least standard, so to speak, of attractive appearance. Everything was incredibly frustrating. Juana felt her anxiety increasing with each passing day, and the future seemed more and more uncertain. Back in her hometown for a while, she returned to live with her parents. Of course, she was embarrassed to tell her father and mother how badly her classmates had treated her during her studies, so Marta and Eduardo never found out. Juana lied to them by telling them that her new friends whom she had managed to make in high school were now as active as she was in looking for her first job, so they didn't even have time to call each other or meet up. Strangely enough, the girl's parents were willing to believe this lie. They still did not understand why their daughter, now so old, was still a terribly lonely person. Joan simply had neither the strength nor the desire to explain it all to them. In the end, Juana decided to take her own health seriously and thought that if she lost weight she would have a better chance of getting the job she wanted. He started trying all kinds of diets, eating only fruit and vegetables, even tried to stop eating altogether. It seems that in the magazines this was called interval starvation, but the result was simply deplorable. Not only did she suffer from unbearable bouts of hunger, but also dizziness and low blood pressure. His regular intake of 3 liters of water a day immediately caused terrible bloating. The young girl couldn't even fit into her most worn shoes, let alone try on new shoes or boots. The saddest part of the whole experience was that late at night, when her parents had already gone to bed, Juana would sneak into the refrigerator and then literally sweep out everything her mother had cooked the night before. Marta sensed that something was wrong with her daughter, but she didn't dare talk to her. It seemed to her that Juana was old enough to listen to her parents' advice and, therefore, she would hardly want to have a new conversation with her mother about her own excess weight. By then, the woman had already begun to guess that Juana's absolute refusal to eat during the day and her nightly forays into the refrigerator were obviously related in some way. But Martha, by her nature, was a simple person. She was never interested in the problems of people suffering from obesity. She had never heard of such phenomena as hyperanxiety or bulimia nervosa, so she did not try to forbid her daughter to do what she thought was right for her. As for Father Linda, he always accepted his daughter as she was, and did not consider her fatness as something outlandish or, on the contrary, repulsive. For him, Juana's appearance and her good-natured character were the only inseparable concepts. Eduardo was very proud of his daughter's academic success and did not doubt for a second that sooner or later she would find the job of her dreams. Juana, for her part, switched to a harsher type of fasting. Not only did she begin to completely abstain from eating, but she also added fitness to her daily routine. The strength training and treadmill training she had been doing at the local gym, combined with absolute starvation, began to pay off. Juana managed to lose the first few pounds. However, the irregular diet and exercise regimen soon took its toll on Juana's well-being. At times she felt as if she was about to faint, while her heart was almost racing with the frantic pace of exercise. Soon, there was no more water that could help her eliminate the toxins she had accumulated during the fast. Juana's joy at her early victories faded all too soon, leaving her with damaged health and a course of vitamins and expensive medications that she had to take for several months. She tried to keep her poor condition a secret from her parents, but all was revealed when, during another training session at the gym, Juana simply fainted. The trainer called an ambulance and immediately summoned Marta and Eduardo, after which Juana was severely reprimanded by both her mother and father and the treating physician. Of course, you are looking at your social networks, where everyone is so slim and handsome, they take pictures of themselves in tight tights in front of the mirror, and then want to have the same body in 2 months. But you young people don't understand that it's all a fraud. There are so many plastic surgeries. The old gastroenterologist lamented, taking Juana's pulse. Do you think that if you don't eat anything and exercise all your muscles, you'll become like them? You are naive. Juana limited herself to silently swallowing tears of resentment and shame, and wanted to disappear under the reproachful, although affectionate, gaze of her parents. That day, after fainting, she had to spend several hours under and for in the emergency room. She was found totally exhausted, although her appearance was the same. The young woman found it hard to accept the fact that this metamorphosis of the human body, it was all about losing weight, does not happen as quickly as she would like, and that sometimes it takes years for some people to achieve the desired result. In any case, from that moment on, Juana stopped torturing herself completely. She seriously feared for her own life and for the health of her parents. It is frightening to think what would have happened to them if, because of her own stupidity, Juana had suddenly become an invalid. Juana could not imagine such a thing even in her darkest dreams, so she slowly began to return to her normal routine, which was also difficult for her. The hated kilos had returned, of course, but the girl's remaining health gave her hope that things could still change for the better. When she had her first opportunity at the Papyrus Plus clinic, Juana began her nursing duties with redoubled zeal. At first, she had a really hard time among her new colleagues, the bright, pretty girls who walked the clinic's corridors every day in their short gowns. Few of them preferred to work in closed uniforms, which suggested long pants and comfortable shoes. To tell the truth, Juana was the only one who dressed like that. At first, the young nurses also whispered behind the new girl's back. They were surprised to find such an obese girl in the surgery department, but she was endorsed by the chief physician himself, and that said it all. Modesto had never defended anyone just because he knew them, but here was a girl he didn't even know, and a trainee at that. So, the other staff members reasoned, he still saw something in her that prompted him to persuade Francisca, always as bad as the devil himself, the head of personnel, to accept a former student, without a single work experience behind her, in a position of such responsibility as that of a nurse. However, the gossip behind Juana's back soon came to an end, as in a very short time she managed to establish herself as an excellent specialist. She put into practice all the knowledge she had acquired in medical school during her years of study, performing each of her duties with excellent results. The new nurse, despite her obesity, always responded very quickly to signals, and in a few minutes she could cross the space of the entire institution to get to a particular patient's room. The clinic's clients were also very happy with her work and spoke very highly of her. Juana was excellent at administering injections and drips, so that the patients, afterwards, did not have a single mark or bruise on their skin, and felt no more pain than that of a mosquito bite. Juana also excelled in bandaging. Wounds and sprains treated by the girl always healed very quickly in patients, thus shortening their stay in the clinic. Not for nothing did the young nurse receive a special certificate from the faculty for her excellence in surgery. Nurse Linda could blindly apply a stitch of any complexity, fix a dislocation, if necessary, and apply a complex bandage for heart injuries. The girl was thrilled every time she was finally able to do what she thought she was born to do. After a while, Juana's picture was already in the clinic's foyer. In the honor roll, the smiling nurse became the best employee of the month. Gradually, the other specialists got used to the plump, kind-hearted nurse and began to treat her much better. Now the other nurses did not hesitate to talk to her first, often chatted with her between shifts, had coffee together, when they could or when there were very few patients in the hospital, and, in general, treated Juana as an equal. The preconceived idea that overweight people were destined to be withdrawn, jealous and irritable shattered in their minds all by itself. The thin beauties were happy to talk to Juana and knew that if they suddenly had a problem or needed an urgent change, the kind and helpful girl would always come to their aid and lend them a hand, without asking for anything in return. Juana herself was only silently rejoicing at the change that was taking place in her life. For once, she was being treated in a truly humane way, without deceit or selfish interests. The girl could feel her soul thawing after years of anger and rejection by other people, and this feeling, unnoticed by her, made her life much more joyful and fun. Juana had the last month of her internship left. Francisca told her that the head doctor and the patients were very happy with the way she worked. Moreover, the girl was lucky enough to fit in perfectly with her team, which meant that there were no longer any obstacles for the clinic's management to hire the new nurse. "Congratulations, Juana." Francisca shook the girl's hand with a reserved air. "You only have to stay here for 3 more weeks and then you will officially become a full employee of Papyrus Plus. By the way, your salary will also grow. You don't have to worry, we never disadvantage our own in this respect. Frankly, this is the first time in my practice that a person with a secondary professional education is so interested in her work and so eager to help people." Juana felt a little embarrassed, but thanked the head of the Human Resources Department wholeheartedly. "Thank you, Francisca," said the nurse modestly. "I took the Hippocratic Oath. How can I hurt people? And I like to help. I really hope that next year I will be able to pursue higher education. I want to study neurosurgery, if, of course, I manage to pass the university entrance exams." The woman looked at the girl approving. "I'm happy for you. You don't give up, that means you're going to make it. With your effort and dedication, I'm sure you'll reach the top, and we'll hear about you again, but as a top doctor," Francisca joked at the end of the conversation. A couple of days later, at a staff meeting, it was announced that the surgery department where Juana worked would have a new chief. The next day, when Juana arrived early for work, she was surprised to see a line of unfamiliar nurses gathered at the door of the new chief's office. "What is going on here?" asked Juana. "The new director is hiring more staff," said Mariella, a blonde girl from the traumatology department, with whom Juana used to do shifts on the same shift, with a disgruntled air. "Something tells me that this Tomas is a shady guy." Juana looked carefully at the girls. They all looked good together, long legs, pronounced waist and hips, and such pretty faces. As if they had just stepped out of the pages of a fashion magazine. Nurse Linda preferred not to react to what was happening, although something in the depths of her soul subtly hiccuped, reminding her of a certain fragility of her position among such a flower garden. However, the girl was convinced that she had managed to earn the position thanks to her excellent work performance, so she tried to devote herself to her tasks and put thoughts of her own imperfection out of her mind. A couple of days later, Juana was coming out of the room where she had just bandaged the head of a businessman who had accidentally fallen off his quad bike while on vacation and now had to be treated in her clinic for a while with a suspected concussion. The girl had just stepped out into the hallway when she nearly collided with a stocky, balding man with square glasses. "Excuse me, please," Juana gasped, surprised. "I didn't expect anyone else to come here, apart from our girls." The bald man's face paled at the sight of the embarrassed nurse. After a moment, his mouth twisted into an unpleasant grimace. He gave Joan a quick glance from head to toe before speaking in a haughty tone. "What is this?" he muttered. "Who dares an orangutan to work among orchids?" "I beg your pardon?" Gasping with indignation, Juana asked, "Did you just call me an orangutan?" The man smiled crooked. "You, of course. Who else? Do you see anyone else ugly here?" "How dare you?" said Juana with a trembling voice. "Who are you?" In response, she simply held her name tag, which hung from a long silk cord on her chest, up to her face. After reading the name, Juana felt her heart sink somewhere. In front of her was Tomas Nieto del Rio, the new head of the surgical department of Papyrus Plus. Tomas had disliked Juana from the first day they met in that corridor. As soon as he had the chance, he began to mock the girl mercilessly, using all his stock of repulsive epithets. He did so at the most inopportune moments, when Joan was working with the patients. On one occasion, the surgeon entered the operating room just as Juana was treating the burned hand of a client. The latter was an attractive woman in her 30s, and Tomas, looking at her frankly, did not spare her any compliment. "Oh, what excellent patients we have here, MMM. I shouldn't say that, but, I'm even glad you came to see us. It's always nice to see so much beauty in one room, and if you're recovering, too. Do you like everything here?" The bewildered woman nodded. "Yes, the service is wonderful, and the nurse here is wonderful." She smiled kindly at Juana. "The service is wonderful, and so is the nurse here." She smiled kindly at Juana. Yes, well, I'm very glad that she is being treated properly here." Thomas leaned closer to Joan, and in a low voice, but so that the patient could hear him, he hit, "Hurry up and put that putty on, you fat-footed muffin. You've probably been here for half an hour. Who hired you, for God's sake? You've ruined the air in the treatment room." With these words, she quietly left the office, and Juana remained standing, barely able to hold back the sobs that rose in her throat. She was red with indignation and very much afraid of hurting the patient without realizing it. She heard the surgeon's every word and tried to reassure the nurse, whose hands, by then, were visibly trembling. "Don't worry about it. I don't know what's wrong with him. But I do know that people like him should be kicked out of medicine with dirty rags. And you are a sweetheart, Juana, don't even worry about him." Juana thanked the woman for her concern and continued to treat the burn. There were more and more such moments. It was as if the director had deliberately provoked Juana, waiting for her nerves to explode, and she herself wanted to leave the clinic. However, despite all his taunts, the nurse continued to do her job, receiving from the patients nothing but gratitude and expressions of sincere kindness. This infuriated the surgeon most of all, who could not in any way spoil either the girl's own work or the attitude of others towards her. Finally, Tomas found an excuse to make Juana's life even more unbearable. One day he summoned the girl to his office and, in front of his colleagues, reprimanded her for having mixed up the blood tubes of two different patients while undergoing tests. "Do you have any idea in your thick skull what could have happened if, God forbid, I hadn't realized this monstrous mistake? Zanetti has acute pyelonephritis, she is going to be operated in a few days, but Sanchez only has gastritis. So what? I would cut an innocent person who only has to take pills, but I would let the other one go home to die. But that's impossible," Juana protested, frightened. "I personally filled out all the labels on the tubes, and I remember exactly that everything was marked correctly." Oh, Linda," said Tomas, "you should be ashamed to lie in front of your senior colleagues. In general, like this, as of today, I'm transferring you to the rank of cleaner. For the time being it will be temporary, you will clean floors, carry containers for patients, and maybe you will learn something, except to show off your nose in front of your bosses. And what's more, they put your face on the wall of honor, so now you know better than the professionals what's going on at every step." Disgraced and humiliated, Juana left the surgeon's office. She could not even imagine that it was possible to confuse those ill-fated tubes. She remembered how precisely and legibly he wrote down everything, what tests and what preliminary diagnosis were in each patient's electronic file. It was a 100% mistake, but it was more likely, as much as Juana disliked to admit it, that Tomas had simply squeezed her out of the job she had worked so hard to get. The next day, flooded with salty tears, the girl began working as a cleaner. Most of her days were spent cleaning floors in medical containers, as well as washing patients' bed linens and cleaning the back rooms. Thomas, for his part, was frankly happy with the situation. He didn't need good specialists. He preferred to keep a small harem of the brightest beauties graduated from medical school at his workplace. A nurse doesn't need a brain. What's so complicated about it? Bandaging a wound or giving a pill in time? A parrot can do it. Beauty and tenderness, on the other hand, are paramount qualities for a good nurse, was the reasoning of the lecherous manager. That is why, on the day of his appointment, the surgeon organized a real mini-casting for the position of senior assistants. Joan also understood the reason for this attitude of Thomas towards her, and so she was not in the least surprised to see the next day, at her former place of work, a pretty, long-necked beauty with duck lips. She cooed softly in the director's ear, while the surgeon grinned like a cat that had eaten enough cream. At one point, the young girl was terribly offended and cried again, not understanding why. Because of her obesity, some considered her to be some kind of subhuman. Tomas' harassment continued. He could easily tip over a bucket of dirty water when Juana forgot to pick it up in time from the hallway, or he would come up with another insulting nickname for the girl, which made the young woman want to drop everything and leave the clinic for good. Of course, Juana could have complained about the surgeon to the chief physician. Modesto would probably not have left the problem unresolved. However, she understood that, in that case, her life at Papyrus Plus would become unbearable. Thomas would find another way to discredit her in front of her colleagues and bosses, and then she would be given a wolf ticket. Juana was not willing to give up her dream, so she had to endure and continue mopping the floors in silence. Modesto Vicuna McKenna, 35-year-old chief physician of the Papyrus Plus private clinic, was sitting in his office, anxiously reviewing a stack of complaints from visitors. Flipping through the papers, he found the same words in large letters on almost every complaint: discontent, inaptitude in treating wounds, a prick, like a pig, thick needles. The nurse is stupid, she doesn't know how to wash her hands before getting into my wounds, and so on. In a particularly negative review, Modesto even discovered that some female employees of the clinic prefer to do complicated makeup at the workplace itself, without thinking about the patients at the same time. On the one hand, there is no smoke without fire. There were especially many complaints about the surgery department, where a new head has just been appointed. Modesto did not particularly like Tomas, but he was presented as an excellent specialist, and besides, Everyone in the medical community knows that a patient is not fed porridge to criticize any medical institution, even one as expensive and prestigious as his clinic. At the same time, most of the complaints were anonymous. People were afraid of provoking the wrath of the doctors, so they were in no hurry to reveal their names. What if they ended up here again? In general, Modesto had no clear evidence of the guilt of Thomas or any of his staff, so he decided to take the ploy and installed his own hidden camera in the surgical department. He did it quietly, hidden from the main staff, so that there would be no unnecessary gossip, and no one could warn the surgeon. Modesto needed evidence, based on which he could decide what to do next with the manager. The next night, two homeless men crowded into the clinic's emergency room. Their dirty clothes and long, matted hair left no doubt that both had come straight from the street. In the arms of one of them lay an emotionless young woman, white as a sheet. Blood gushed steadily from a large gash on her head, reddening her face and her simple light gray dress. "Help! Somebody help her!" The men shouted. "A doctor, please! There's a girl in trouble." Juana, who was mopping the floor in the lobby, heard the screams and crept up to the beggars. The young woman was hiding in the shade of a large plant on the floor, behind a painted ceramic pot, so she could go unnoticed by all present, despite her physical parameters. The nurse on duty at the reception desk immediately hurried to follow the director. After a few interminable minutes, Tomas lazily stepped out into the hallway. "Where the hell have you been, asshole?" Juana thought, "The girl is going to bleed to death right here, and that's it, we can't save her." More than anything, Juana now wanted to jump out of her hiding place and help the poor girl, but she couldn't take the risk, or else it would be worse for everyone. The surgeon came only a few steps closer to the victim, who was still being held by the vagrant. From his unsteady and slightly shaky gait, Juana understood that he was drunk. "Thank God, doctor." One of them lamented. "She was found in the courtyard near the club. I don't know what she was doing there in the middle of the night, but she must have been attacked. Help her, for God's sake, will you? It's a pity for the girl, she's still young and they almost broke her head, those bastards. We've seen it all, the thieves and the way it went." To Joan's horror, Thomas merely gave a drunken smile. "These bums have guts, don't they? Sandra, but have you seen it? They bring me their girl, and they think I'm going to take care of her for free? No, dear sirs, you can take your girl and go to hell. We don't want any more wounded bitches here in the middle of the night." Waving to the homeless and the injured young woman, Thomas staggered to his office, ignoring the cries for help from the beggar. "How in God's name can you call yourself a doctor after that? Burn in hell, Aspidus!" Two men cursed the surgeon. When Tomas, along with the pretty young nurse at the front desk, disappeared from sight, Juana took a chance and quickly emerged from her makeshift hiding place. She pulled a gurney out of the side hallway and quickly carried it to the patient and her companion. "I'll take care of her. Come on, help me get her on the stretcher." The tramps looked at each other in silence, but immediately acceded to the nurse's request. When the girl was placed on the cold surface, she moaned long and loudly. "Careful. That's it," whispered Juana, fixing the girl's hands. "We'll help you now, honey, don't worry. You just hold still and everything will be all right." "Thank you, daughter," the two beggars thanked Juana. "We thought there were non-humans working here. How can you trust a doctor after that, huh?" Juana nodded and quickly took the wounded young woman to the farthest room, where neither she nor the nurse could be discovered. There, she washed the wound perfectly, treated it with a special ointment and applied a small, clean stitch, so that the scar that would inevitably remain in the area would be completely invisible. After Juana started an intravenous line, the girl slowly began to revive. Her cheeks flushed again, albeit faintly, and her eyelids stopped twitching, which was already a good sign in her condition. Soon, the victim spoke, coming to herself. In a weak voice, she asked Juana to lend her her phone. "Please. Call. I need to call you. He's worried." "Hush, honey, calm down." Juana stroked his skinny arm. "When you have the strength, you'll call whoever and wherever you want, I promise. In the meantime you must rest. Sleep. You don't understand, The girl continued to insist in a colorless voice. The heart. That's Scott. What is her name? Asked the nurse to distract her. The nurse shook her head. Irma, he answered quietly, and fainted. The next morning there was a real commotion at the clinic. The hospital was in a hurry, because they had been visited by Diego Kimmel himself, a big industrialist and millionaire of international standing. The respectable man arrived at the hospital in a huge black SUV and threw open the doors of the medical center. He was furious. Where is she? Where is my daughter? He shouted to the pretty nurse. Tell me your last name, please, she shrieked back, and the name. And don't shout at me, please, I can't stand loud noises. The millionaire looked at the girl as if he was ready to strangle her right there, in the workplace. And then he uttered almost spontaneous, Kimmel. Irma Kimmel. Is that clear to you? Yes, that's understandable. We haven't had any patients with this name, replied the nurse, wiggling her nose. What the? The businessman let out a cry of rage. He texted me last night, from his lousy medical center. Was he dreaming or something? The nurse, confused, could only flutter her huge eyelashes, as if opalescent, but then, suddenly, Juana approached and, without saying a word, took him to her daughter's room. Through the glass, Juana could see Kimmel happily hugging his daughter. That night, Irma was able to send a text message to her father from Juana's phone. It turned out that the girl had been attacked on her way back from seeing her friends in the evening. It was the only thing she could remember. In the darkness she could not see the faces of the attackers. Shortly thereafter, Diego called all the clinic staff on duty for that shift into the room. Which of you saved my daughter? He asked calmly. I guarantee that man any promotion he wants. I have enough money and contacts to get it. Juana, out of natural modesty, preferred to remain silent, but Tomas decided to confess. It was me, said the surgeon, with his eyes theatrically lowered. Tomas Sofo, when your daughter was brought to us. I immediately did everything possible to organize the best possible care for her. Juana almost choked at the manager's insolence. Oh, Mr. Tomas, began the millionaire in a moved voice, you ought to know how grateful I am to him. You'll forgive me if I burst out a little when I arrived, but, you know, the only daughter. Of course, Thomas nodded flatteringly. Family, that's sacred, what patients you can talk about. Suddenly, the head physician of the hospital appeared through the door. Don't thank him yet, Diego, Modesto asked the millionaire. He's not a man to thank in front of people. With these words, Modesto pressed the remote control, and a large screen in the middle of the lobby showed the true state of affairs that night. The businessman could see it all, how Tomas had dismissed his daughter naturally, and how the only normal-looking nurse in the whole building, who, of course, was plump Juana, had arrived in time to save her. This is all an impertinent lie. Tomas tried to justify himself. What are you accusing me of? Oh, I have a lot of interesting material on this flash drive. Modesto smiled back. And how you take bribes from the richest patients, and how you hang out with young nurses when no one is looking, and how you get addicted to alcohol in the middle of the service. I have a lot more about you. Tomas simply kept silent. This heroic employee was fired the next day. However, the clinic did not regret it, because he then went home his mega harem, leaving only the girls who really wanted and did their job well. Jean befriended Irma Kimmel, the businessman's daughter, was sincerely grateful to the affectionate nurse and became Jean's first friend in life. She appreciated the girl's inner qualities and was not at all ashamed to appear with her in society, for she was not prejudiced about her friend's great weight. Juana herself soon began dating the head doctor. At first no one believed there could be anything serious between them, but Juana managed to win the young man's heart with her purity and cordiality. Modesto, a widower for a long time, considered his relationship with Juana as a sign from above. Their relationship was full of tenderness and romanticism, so that a year later, despite the mockery of some people in Modesto's circle, he and Juana were married. Many thought then that her marriage would not last 6 months, but everyone was wrong. Juana consulted an experienced nutritionist and, with Irma's help and her father's contacts, was able to work on her health in one of the best spas in the world. In addition, she has been able to radically change her eating habits and her diet in general, as well as adding sport and daily walks to her life in a smart and gradual way. All this helped her to start losing weight quickly, and in a year and a half Juana had lost more than half of her original weight. The girl's happiness knew no bounds, because now her life was really a different color. But she did not stop and continued to improve her health and lose weight at the same time. What a surprise the nurse got when, a few months later, she found out she was pregnant. This gift was one of the most important things in her life. She had already forgotten that she could be a mother. Of course, her husband, Modesto, was very excited about the future member of the family, so he began to keep a closer eye on his wife's health and to do everything possible to make her the happiest woman on the planet. Exactly 9 months later, the couple had a wonderful baby boy, named Rafael. The son made the family even stronger, and his mother was anxious to make sure there was more nutrition and sport in his life, as she feared her problems would be passed on to him. Fortunately, this did not happen, but Juana still tried to keep the baby's health under control for as long as possible. If you liked the story, please like and subscribe to the channel.